Welcome to Consciously Inspired Minds, where we ditch the default and live life by design. I'm your host, Brandy White, personal growth enthusiast, entrepreneur, and lifestyle coach. I host conversations with creators, entrepreneurs, healers, and educators committed to living a life of truth, intention, and connection. Understanding how to discover their inner vision to design their outer world. Our guests take us on a journey of what it means to embody a life of conscious inspiration, joy, impact, and service. Get ready to be inspired. Hello, welcome to Consciously Inspired Minds. I have a really exciting guest on today, Erin Savage-Weaver. And Erin is here today to talk to us about how us women can feel empowered in our finances and our money. So before you hit stop on this episode, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to bring some levity to this conversation. I know we might be getting a little clenchy when we think about and our conversation around money and finance, but it's going to be amazing. So Erin her energy is infectious, everybody. I met Erin not too long ago at a women's event, and it was an event that I had never been to before. And I approached her table and she was so warm, so welcoming, so accommodating. And I just energetically felt so pulled to her and was really excited to have her on today. So you're really going to enjoy this episode. So just a little bit more about Erin. She is a certified financial planner professional at Kehoe Financial Advisors. She works with individuals to educate, develop, and execute tailored financial planning strategies, including social security strategies, along with tax, retirement, investment, and estate advice. With over 20 years in wealth management, Erin has a passion for partnering with her clients to ensure that they achieve their financial goals. Okay, so amongst that, Erin also serves her community by volunteering with the Junior League of Cincinnati, Planned Parenthood, Senior Advocate Action Group, and Meals on Wheels. Erin, thanks so much for being here. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited and honored. This is awesome.
Yes, amazing. Okay, so before we get into all the juicy stuff, where I like to kick off is tell us a little bit about your childhood, your upbringing, and how that has informed and impacted where you are today.
Yeah, so I was raised in Cincinnati. I was not necessarily born here, but I was raised here by West Coast parents, as you will. I was actually born in Alaska and came here. My dad's company was building the Mount Adams retaining wall. And so we stayed. And I've, really enjoyed living in Cincinnati pretty much my whole life. But it's interesting because growing up, money was not really a topic you had a conversation around. It was, when mom had to do the bills, it was a very stressful time and just a lot of anxiety around that I didn't quite know why being young. And then when I got my first job, my parents were all like, save 10%. But then they never told me what to do with it or how long to save it or what am I doing with it? So it easily got spent on buy this Clinique makeup and get your free purchase. So then
Same.
I actually, right? Like I love a free coat bag.
Yeah.
So growing up in that way, I didn't have a lot of that money foundation that a lot of people have. And so it really kind of settled in me, but it didn't drive my career choice, if you will. I was actually a criminal justice major heading for law enforcement in college.
Wow.
And then I ended up lucked into a job in wealth management at Provident Bank. And that changed the trajectory of my career and my life. So that world is very interesting. It had a lot to learn. And I realized how many people out there really had similar money messages than I did when I was young, that you're kind of told to save, but you didn't really know what to save for or what to do with it. You just had this abstract thought.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I guess the first question that comes to mind is, what was the shift between criminal justice and then your role at Provident Bank in wealth management?
Yeah, so it was very interesting. I was headed for the US Marshal Service and I got a job at the bank. They liked the fact that I had a criminal justice degree because of the compliance standpoint, right? The rule follower in me offered
Mm,
me that job. And I really had a lot of heart to hearts with peers, family, colleagues about which path that was going to be the better fit for me overall, right? You're in your young 20s, you don't know what you don't know.
right.
And I ended up staying in wealth management and in the trust department there. And it really was the better fit for me, especially my personality. I would have been the nicest person arresting you ever, but I probably would have let you down. So that was where I ended up. I do like the compliance part and the process and procedures of my world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many people can relate to, like you just said, to your money mind and your story growing up. Similarly, there was a lot of stress in the house around money and finance. And so I've been working on my money mind really probably consciously the last year or so because I've continued to come from this place of lack and also put me into this hustle mentality and this burnout and this overachieving because I was running away from having to feel that lack ever. And ultimately, it had me realize that I wasn't even living in my authenticity. It was causing a lot of stress in other places in my life, even though now I wasn't living check to check and I was abundant financially. I was just really missing the mark in other places of my life. And so it's funny how our money minds can just put us on this trajectory that may not be in our best interest. So, how do we start to work through that? And I know, Erin, you and I were kicking things off before we started to record, and we were mentioning a lot of the shame that we can feel around money. And I certainly don't want to make this just a male, female, woman, man conversation, but I also do want to highlight some of the systemic things holding us back historically as women that have put us in this deficit, really, of not feeling worthy in our money or not getting to our earning potential or feeling this imposter syndrome or allowing our partners to really take control of the finances. And we just have this sort of head in the sand mentality that everything's being taken care of. So there's so much to unpack today. But one of the things I did want to mention as we get started in the conversation and why I felt this was so important is how do we continue to build our confidence here and take that shame away? And I was doing a little bit of research and I was shocked to find out that it wasn't until 1974 that women were even able to open their own bank account in their name. They weren't able to even open a credit card. And it still wasn't until 1974 where the women's mortgage liberation happened, where we were able to purchase our own home or have our name on the home. Like, ladies, this is recent. And so let's just let that land for a minute. And then the constant messaging around girls aren't good at math or girls aren't good with numbers, or we're telling our girls, hey, let's save. We're telling our boys, let's invest. And again, I mean, we just want to find the balance, right? There is no right or wrong here, but how can we start to maybe adjust our mindset and some of those beliefs that we have around money? As we even talk about women and finance, Erin, I'd like to be there for a minute. Why do you think we're not seeing as many women in finance as we are men?
I think that goes back to your point about historically, we were not involved in those conversations. We were not
Mm,
invited into those rooms, those meetings, etc. We have, even now, less than 20% of all certified financial planners are women.
wow.
Even in this area that, we're really trying to grow in of ourselves, we're still kind of fighting through those barriers that women have and have always had. And so we continue to fight. My passion has always been empowering women to just kind of feel where you are right now, right? Like, I don't mean to be a therapist, but just
Mm,
kind of feel where you are with money. Where does it come from? just take stock of yourself and where you're at. And then we can go from there. And a lot of it is giving yourself grace. Understand that maybe you were not raised in a household where they told you to invest, or maybe you were raised in a household where they didn't talk about money, or maybe you were raised in a household where your mom stayed home or just worked part-time. And so that's the vision that you have of your role in society. I always try to tell anyone having the conversation for the first time, just kind of sit with yourself for a minute, figure out why you're fearing sitting down and having the look at your finances or asking questions. We don't know what we don't know. And so I think a lot of women have a tendency not to ask because they don't want to appear uneducated or that they don't know. They don't want to bring that out in them. And I think it's really important for us to ask those questions, no matter how simple you think they are, or that you should have already known it, but you don't. And that's okay. So a lot of the times I think people have a fear of not having enough money, a fear of looking like they should know, but they don't, right? There's all these fears that drive us to make decisions. And a lot of times that fear will also then drive us to put our head in the sand and ignore it and let somebody else take care of it.
Yes.
Historically, the men have always taken care of the finances. If you look at any historical drama, the women were not, in those board meetings at the bank or going to the bank for anything. They got an allowance and that's what they did with it.
Right.
And even now I see a lot of couples where I'm trying to get them out of the mentality of giving an allowance to the spouse.
Gosh, language is so important, isn't it? Yeah, I think you make a few really great points there, which is, take stock. Let's just be with maybe even why you came here in the first place, which is, let's celebrate that. Even someone reaching out to you, wanting that support, beautiful, but giving them an opportunity to think about their money mind. I think that's great. I guess my question is, how do you begin to normalize with your client that you don't know what you don't know, or taking away, maybe holding some space for them when they're feeling some of that fear of looking like they don't know what they think they should know about finance? How do you kind of move them through that?
It's very interesting because a lot of my job, and I was always told growing up I was not good with numbers, right? And
same.
So here I am, a financial planner.
Yeah.
But a lot of my job is breaking down those walls for you to communicate with me. So I try to make it very approachable, kind of I always tell sometimes like my first meeting, I'm like, oh, this is going to be like a really awkward first date. I'm going to ask you some really random questions and you're going to wonder why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But I always kind of follow up and tell you why I'm asking you the questions I'm asking you. And I also try to preemptively answer some questions or give them some things to think about to make them kind of ease them into the conversation, breaking down those barriers. And if I have a couple, for instance, if the husband I feel is talking the most, I will redirect the conversation to get her input and her perspective and really engage her in the conversation. I think that's important for any couple. There's usually one dominant person in the couple and then somebody who's just kind of there because they were told they have to be there.
Right.
And part of the money conversation can be as simple as getting to know what you like to do. Like, do you volunteer? Do you like to travel? Tell me about your kids. Tell me about your pets. Let's talk about the things that are comfortable for you first. And then we can kind of work into how does all of that impact our finances on a day-to-day basis? And I do not believe that you should give up your lattes, just so you know.
Yes, I love that point. Something else too, I think as women, we are told to save and not to overspend or overindulge and clip coupons and find the discount. And it's like, no, I want to live an abundant life and I want to enjoy the fruits of my labor and I want to enjoy all these things that I'm passionate about. So how can we create this expansive mindset versus this lack mentality of, okay, well, maybe I should call the cable company and save $20 on my bill this month.
People like to do that. And I highly encourage that. Have fun calling the cable company.
Sure, absolutely.
A lot of times it is, like you said, breaking down that barrier of the judgment. And I don't care what you spend your money on. But let's talk about what's important to you and what gives you fulfillment. I find a lot of people overspend because they feel that's the only thing they can control. So if
Interesting.
we can kind of dial back a little bit and feel like we have control of our finances and feel like we have control over certain parts of our life, then we tend to kind of get ourselves back in balance with regards to our spending. But in a lot of it is just saying, just you spend what you want to spend and we'll figure out how to make that work and we'll help navigate you through, any changes that we need to make. But I do not believe in drastic changes for anyone when it comes to their finances. I tell people, let's change this. Let's do this for 6 months. Let's come back and see how that feels.
Yeah.
Tell me how that felt. Did you feel like you were in control? Did you feel like you couldn't spend anything and you had to tell all your friends no to go out to the concert? These are the things I want to know, is how it made you feel. And my goal is always to make people feel empowered, educated, enthusiastic on some regard when they leave a meeting with me. That's usually my goal.
Right. Yeah. Going back to the control piece, how do you start to get a client organized in their finances so they feel as though they do have a little bit more control and visibility to what that looks like?
Early in my career, I used to ask people for their checking account statements, their credit card statements, and I would do a full analysis on those and come back to you and kind of pinpoint where you were spending. Now I allow people to, I don't want to say allow, encourage people to just give me a ballpark number of what they think they spend a month. So
Okay.
not getting into the nitty gritty at that moment, right?
Yeah.
We'll get to the nitty gritty later if we need to.
Okay.
But in that moment, just give me a ballpark. What you bring home in your pay, do you spend it all? Or are you able to save anything? From there, that gives them a little bit more comfort in that they don't think I'm going to judge them for drinking Starbucks 17 times a day,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm not. More power to you. And a lot of it is just encouraging people when they do something well or they've made a good decision to applaud them for that. To let them know that this was an amazing thing that they've done, or they've saved this much, or they've invested this much, or they've paid off their credit card debt. Whatever it is, really encourage those good behaviors, because that's what we're trying to shift, is the behavior along with the mindset of the money and the conversation. And so just trying to make it as easy as possible on people to be able to be open. I have had meetings where the client did not talk to me for 30 minutes. They just stared at me and they would not answer any questions other than a yes or no. So sometimes it does take me a minute to get them to open up, but I can usually get them to open up. And then you have last night where I had a prospect. She's 92 years old.
Oh, wow.
She called me up. She talked to me for 40 minutes.
Right.
She told me everything about her life story. And I loved that. And I encourage that. I want you to tell me. But I also think that in general, a lot of advisors, and not to knock any advisors, but a lot of advisors go straight for the investments.
Okay. Tell me more there. What do you mean they go straight for it?
Basically, tell me how much I can manage for you and take over for you and make my goals for the month or what have you.
Okay.
Whereas typically with certified financial planners, we tend to look at the holistic. We want everything. I want to know how you're spending your days. I want to know what brings you joy. I want to know what is causing you angst and not able to sleep at night. And then that way we can cultivate plans and checklists, if you will, around what's going to help change that for you. And sometimes it's as small as they just want to know that they're going to have health insurance next year. Things that they wouldn't think that I would care about, or they need a new bathroom remodel. I care about that. I can give you contacts, but that all impacts your finances and how you think about it. And so just getting people to really, that I'm not there just to take over their investments and then let them never talk to them again type thing. I want to have these conversations. I want a relationship to be built. I want you to call me in the middle of the night, leave me a voicemail that you woke up freaking out about something, because I'll call you the next day. We'll talk through it.
And what are typically people coming to you for? Are you seeing even a trend right now? Maybe like in some fears, or what does that look like?
So typically what happens in my world is people come in with one question. They come in with one thing that they want me to solve for them. Am I saving enough for retirement? How do I get my kids through college? I want to, make more money. I want my investments to do. They usually come in with one thing. And I usually can uncover 5 or 6 other things that actually take priority. So if you think about it, like when you're remodeling your house, you might think, oh, I need to get rid of this flooring. And then the real estate agent comes in and says, oh, no, leave the flooring alone. Focus on this over here. So a lot of my job is redirecting that focus. And typically what they're worried about is really something they should not be worried about.
Interesting.
And we talk through that. I am seeing a lot of fears because we have had such growth in the market for so many years. And now that we're kind of seeing some dips and potentially a little bit of a recession, people are very, very anxious about running out of money or losing money. We're finding a lot of those conversations are happening right now about loss. They're very afraid. They're clenching. They're clenching their money. They want to stick it under the mattress.
Right.
And we have a lot of people that, we have a lot of moms and dads that are newly married and maybe they want to get a house or they want to have kids. Maybe they just want to have fur kids, whatever you want. And then we try to kind of work through how that's going to look for them in terms of cash flow. So we're getting kind of one end of the spectrum and the other, like super fearful about losing all their money. And on the other hand, hey, we have this new lifestyle. How do we manage this?
Yeah. And it sounds like possibly different age groups as well, kind of a different demographic.
Absolutely.
So once you have a client and you kind of begin to take them through this process and asking them these deeper questions, how do you get them to commit to sustainable change?
That's a challenge for sure with my world. And once you leave my office, how do I kind of get that bug in your ear to keep going? I think a lot of it is, and I've had this too, right? You look at what you quote unquote your budget. You don't want to look at it because you're so fearful of what's happening with it. You just ignore it.
Yes.
So if I can get people to just look at what they have, where it's going, and then what are our goals and objectives, that to me is half the battle. If I can just get you to acknowledge what you have, a lot of times that starts the pattern. Then what we can do is I like to give little snippets of things to do when you get home over the course of a month or two. And it depends on how long till I follow up with you again. But hey, take a look at this and see what this looks like for you, right? So if you really want to pay down this credit card bill, let's shift some money over here. Let's make an extra payment for the next 6 months and then come back and tell me how that felt. And if we weren't able to do it, let's talk about why not. Was it something that came up and you freaked yourself out? Or are you, a rock star and you thought, oh, this little change is great for me. Let's do that. For instance, when I have couples that come in, I like to get them when they're new so I can help them navigate married life or couple partnership life together. A lot of times somebody will say, I want to stay home with the kids. And that's great. And I do this with my retirees too. It's really weird. My new couples and my retirees, I say for 1 year before any of that occurs, live off of one salary. So continue to work your year, but you're banking your salary. We're either going to pay down debt with it. We're going to save it. We're going to put it towards retirement. We're going to have some plan for it, but live off of that one salary, kind of a practice year, and see what that feels like.
Yeah.
Because you get in these, a lot of people have these expectations of what staying at home with the kids is going to look like or what being retired is going to look like. But let's do some practice. We have that capability and that ability to practice. Let's do that. And a lot of times I think when we do little practices like that, it really helps people sustain long term because we don't frame it as a permanent thing, right? We're just saying, let's practice this for 6 months, a year and see how that feels and if that works for you.
Yeah. And I agree with that wholeheartedly because when we're just running into the fire, it can really tripwire our system. And gosh, it really gets us out of our comfort zone. No matter how badly we think we might want it or desire it, it's new and it's uncomfortable and it's a lot of adjustment. So easing into that, I think is really smart.
You don't want an all or nothing. We don't want it to be, you have to do this and be perfect at it right away. You're going to have hiccups. You're going to have, life is not a straight line from here to here, right? It's kind of a roller coaster. Sometimes the kiddie roller coaster, sometimes the beast. We've got to navigate that in a way that makes you feel good and okay, that maybe 1 month you didn't make an extra payment. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
This is not life or death for the most part. And so we really want to allow people to make those mistakes And that's okay because we learn from those and we see how that feels. And then a lot of it is just truly, like I said, getting back to acknowledging where you are and what you want to change fundamentally. And we'll do it in little increments. We're not going to fire hose you with
Yeah.
information or tasks or homework. I promise I'm not your eighth grade English teacher giving you a novel to read. But if you want books, I'll tell you books to read. So it's a little bit of getting to know the individuals and what works best for them. Some people are very checklist oriented. Some people are very visual.
Ah,
I'll draw pictures, I'll draw stick figures. And then some people are very analytical where they need that spreadsheet and they need it color coded.
yes.
We can do it all for you. That's part of our job, is to make it so that it's appealable and approachable to you and sustainable for you.
Right. And that it speaks your language.
100%. If you want coffee, I'll bring you coffee. Like I tell people. So some of the things too is a lot of, going back to one of your original points, a lot of what it is coming into the office intimidates people.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Coming into my office, my conference room feels very formal and very,
Interesting.
and it doesn't help that I got a lot of dark wood and some dark furniture, and it makes it look like it's, a little bit more old school.
Right.
So a lot of times when I have a conversation with somebody that's called me because they found me online, I'll say, do you want me to meet you for coffee? We can go out for a glass of wine. Do you want me to come, to the neighbor, buy your work? Do you want, so I give options to what's making people feel more comfortable to have that initial conversation. And I always tell them the initial conversation is just strictly a conversation. We're just going to talk. I'm going to take notes. I'm going to make sure it's okay with you that I take notes. And then we're just going to have a conversation and see how I can be of help. And sometimes I have that conversation and I tell them, you're great. You're golden. You don't need me until XYZ happens.
Oh, wow.
And that usually throws people for a loop too, because they're like, wait, you're supposed to want all of my money and want all of my time. And I'm like, no, you're great. You're golden. Call me when XYZ happens, when you want to buy the new car, you want to buy the house, or you have a kid,
right,
or you got a Great Dane that's got medical issues, whatever it is.
And that's so great that you're giving folks that peace of mind too, because a lot of times that's what we need. We're all in search for that peace and that joy. And it's, yeah, I'm sure at times it is, people are doing all the right things and making good choices and coming to you just to confirm and validate. And sometimes we just need that validation and that extra boost of confidence to keep us going.
At my firm, especially, there's 3 advisors in my firm, and we're all actually very passionate regarding widows and widowers and women in general. I know I lost my brother to suicide 2 years ago, and he left behind a family, right?
Oh, wow.
Besides, his sisters and his parents, wife and kids. We've had an advisor who lost a brother-in-law young to cancer. So there's all of these things, these life events that occur that leave somebody behind a lot of times. And if that person has not been in the conversation about the finances, not only is losing their partner jolting to them, now they've got to deal with this world that they've never dealt with before. And how do they navigate that without making big mistakes? And so a lot of times the grief brain shuts down so that it can protect you. And so then I'll help you go through that process and say, this is the decision we have to make. The other ones we can hold off on for a while. So it's also giving people permission to feel whatever it is they're feeling in that moment of their life and working with them step by step, little by little nuggets of changes to go through. I think that's huge. And I don't think a lot of people understand that that's okay, that you do a little bit at a time and you're still going to be successful.
Right. And such a big piece of finance is all about safety and security. I mean, that's what we humans want, is just love and security, belonging and security, connection and security and safety. And you being able to be there for your clients during such a vulnerable, sensitive time, to be able to take them through that process that allows them more time and space to grieve in areas where they really need to be. What a gift.
Important too, because if you think about all of these life events that can happen, even divorce is a grieving process. With women, especially, if they did not ask for the divorce, whether they asked for it or not, a lot of times they're just trying to get through that process as quickly with the least amount of pain they can. And sometimes they harm themselves financially because they haven't talked to people like me beforehand to say, okay, this is really important. This is what your life is going to look like afterwards. And we can navigate that together, but we need to do XYZ now in preparation for that. So even with my, my married couples, my partnerships. I don't sit there and say, let's plan for divorce, right? That's just not, that's kind of a mood killer. Like,
Right.
you want to stay married?
Yeah.
No. But we have those conversations to make sure that both feel empowered and protected and equal in their financial conversation. Even if one person really is the driver of the financial conversation, I want the passenger to understand where we're going and why as well. And I think that's a really important piece that even if you're listening to this podcast and you have no desire to learn anything about investments or savings or it makes you ill, whatever it is, let's at least get you in the car and be the passenger and at least know where we're going and why. So that if something occurs, you take a detour, you understand why decisions were being made the way they were. You don't have to get in the nitty gritty. It's okay.
Right.
I just need you to be in the car with me. Let's go take a trip together.
Just need to know directionally where we're going, but
I need locations. I'm like, let's go. Let's head to that. You have to take one. Don't tell me north, south, east, west. I have no idea. It's the same with individuals and finances. Let's get you to that. Whatever works for you. Let's let you see that thing in the future that you're going for and figure out the best way to get there.
In this conversation, Erin, I can't help but keep going back to getting folks grounded in their why. Why are they showing up in this conversation? Why have they reached up to you? What are their values? And it goes back to everything I talk about on this podcast and even with my coaching clients. I mean, it all comes back down to what are your values? What are your deepest desires? And you have mentioned the word feel so many times. And so I think in the world of finance and money, it can feel very analytical and cerebral, but it's like, gosh, going back to that, we just want security and safety. You're really holding space for your client in so many different ways outside of just managing their money. Okay, what are those sort of emotional addictions that they have around money as well? Because some folks might even be addicted to, gosh, I've always lived check to check. And if I'm no longer living check to check anymore, that's going to be weird.
People can be addicted to that drama of unknown, that fear, that fight or flight comes in to kick in. And that drives some definite fears in people. And so when I'm trying to bring them to a place of comfort, they'll push back because they want that anxiety almost about the unknown. So then we have to unwind all of that training and all that mental training. And sometimes it takes years and sometimes it never happens. So then my job becomes, okay, so you like this drama, you like this, whatever it is, how then can I make you successful, even if you don't want to be? How can I make you successful to the point where you are not destitute when you get to, your 80s, your 90s? The other thing, to your point about kind of this, trying to be more conscious, we have a shift in people on what they're doing with their money while they're alive in terms of leaving a legacy. So we're seeing a lot of people that I'm driving the conversations about. Do you want to leave your legacy to your kids, to your charities, to your family, to your neighbors after your passing? Or do you want it to be now and create these memories and these experiences and see the fruits of your labor going to work? So we're having a lot of those conversations too. And to your point, it's not only the why, but it's let's be conscious and let's be intentional about what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Right.
And also not forgetting that we're going to probably live till we're 95. So let's not spend everything at 35.
Especially as women, outliving our men. Yeah. So we have more to think about in the longevity of life.
And it's very important. I tell people all the time, when they're having a conversation with me, the person you talk to about money and your finances and your investments, the investment piece to me is a small portion. That's just going to be how I get you successful and get you to that goal. The rest of it, I have to work with you to make sure you're doing the day-to-day work. But a lot of times I tell people, you have to be super comfortable with who's managing your money and who you're having these conversations with, because I need you to be open and honest. It's like a therapist. I need you to tell me the truth. I don't want you to lie to me, because that's going to help drive our decision-making process to get you to be successful in where you want to be. And success looks different for everybody.
Right.
And that's the other driver too with women is sometimes I think we feel like we have to hit these certain marks. We have to hit these certain titles, or we have to hit these certain keeping up with the Joneses, or we have to have this house or this car, whatever it is. So we have to talk through all that and figure out the why and really bring people back to what they're afraid of. Are they afraid of not being included? and bring people back to what they really want to see out of their life. And if you want the big $20 million house on the beach, we'll be realistic and if you can get that or not, but we want to know the why because then you've got to live in it.
Right. So when we talk about living into that why and really getting into what it is they deeply desire in this process, how long does that typically take? Or what is that journey with you and the client? How frequently are you meeting, or are there any certain requirements, or what is that cadence? Does it all depend on,
It really depends on the individual.
Yeah.
I have some clients that we meet twice a year, and sometimes we just have a conversation in between to just check and see how they're feeling about things or where they're going. We do typically meet clients either twice a year or once a year, depending on what they need and what they want. And I tell clients all the time, call me, email me anytime you want. That's why I'm here. I'm not here for the once a year review on how your money is going or what your net worth is doing. I want you to call me in these in-between decisions, right? I have an email to answer today about a client that's looking about financing a new home. It's their first home purchase. They have lots of questions on that. So that's outside of the normal, let's meet once or twice a year. I want that because that's going to make you feel empowered and educated to make a decision, knowing that you have some good information behind you.
Right.
And that's half the battle. I don't need you to know the question to ask me because a lot of times I already know the question you need to ask me. I just need you to be okay having a conversation with me and being yourself. I want you to be your authentic self with me. And if it means you say, I want to, I have a client that wants to open up a nonprofit in the future. That's great. Let's drive towards that. I have a client that already has a nonprofit that they've created. That's their why. That's their passion. So everything we do is driven around making sure that they can retire, but also making sure that this nonprofit is sustainable for them and their family's legacy.
What would you recommend to someone who is looking for a financial advisor and how to maybe interview those financial advisors to find the one best for them?
Right? Like the AI, the chat GPTs, the Googles of the world, they have so many questions for you to ask advisors. Of course, I'm going to say you want to work with a certified financial planner because CFPs are awesome. But there are some really good advisors out there that are not necessarily CFPs, but they have that life experience. A lot of times it is do the Google search, ask your friends for the referrals, see kind of what your initial thinking is, like why you want to come see someone and find somebody that can help you with that initial question. And if they open up that can of worms, if you will, and start asking you more questions and get to know you better, and you really, truly have to feel comfortable with them. And I tell clients all the time, if you're not, after a first meeting, if you're not comfortable with me, absolutely, totally understand. Here are some other people that I can introduce you to that might be a better fit for you because I really do believe in a world of abundance. And just because you're not my client doesn't mean I can't introduce you to somebody who I think is going to be a good fit for you.
Absolutely.
The world is too big. There's too many of us. We want you to be comfortable and we want it to be a relationship that you feel at ease having that conversation.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm super fun.
You are super fun.
Some people don't want fun. Like they don't want my personality. They want somebody who's more stoic and analytical and quiet. And that's perfectly fine too. I've got advisors that are like that. So it really is finding somebody that you're going to mesh with and get along with long term.
Yeah. If not one of the most important relationships where you can really show up in your vulnerability, taking that shame out of it. And this is another point. Building that financial acumen is an acquired skill. We have to build that muscle. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit in that. It's not something that we're inherently born with, that we're good at finance and great at managing our money and knowing where to put it and invest and all of that. And I think it probably just all has to start with something we're really passionate about and really taking the accountability and wanting to organize, not just our financial life, but then all other areas of life where we can show up holistically, fully, authentically ourselves, because all these other places in our lives are aligned. If nothing but that, because when we're blocked in one area, we're blocked in another potentially. So it's just a matter of getting out of our own way. And to your point, like, how can we just start to take those baby steps? For instance, my husband and I, this was a couple of years ago, I felt really unorganized in our finances. And I'm like, I really need to know where we are, and we have dreams and goals. And so let's get our heads around what we need to do to make this happen. And we hired a financial advisor, and we have everything locked in this system, and it shows our expenses, our net worth, and all of that stuff. And we can just log in and check into that on a daily basis, as opposed to living in the head in the sand concept and kind of fingers crossed, hoping for the best. And yeah, so it's really about being proactive. And I loved what you said earlier around when you're talking to your clients, not only are you getting grounded in, okay, what's important to you, what's your why, but giving them something to act on, which is a way for them to start building that confidence. When we acted, reached out to the advisor, and then acted and got everything together, it was a process that I found so much appreciation for, especially in the output. And it made me feel way more empowered and way more organized. And I'm planning for my future. And then I walked with a little bit more pep in my step that day, so I'm showing up in other areas.
Yeah, it is amazing once you take that initial step. And sometimes that initial step is looking at your credit card balance, right?
Yes.
It can be as simple as that. And I tell a lot of people, I'm like, actually, you can. Whatever it is, you can. And so you're right. A lot of it is just taking a look at the checking account balance, right? Just go with that, or seeing how much you're paying your bills. And you do start to feel, oh, I can do this. This doesn't hurt as bad as I thought it was going to hurt, or this isn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. As well as women traditionally are better investors in terms of managing their money and investing their money into the market, because as much as people like to think we're overly emotional, and that's why women were out of finances for so long, they are actually very rational and patient and understand that things are cyclical and they've got to take time to build up. And long term, women tend to invest better and have better returns than the traditional male if they're doing it on their own. And so the other part is allowing people to have a voice in that relationship. And sometimes I think women don't, whatever their relationship is with their partner, they don't always feel like they have the voice for whatever reason, whether they're a stay-at-home mom, whether they don't bring in as much money, whether they bring in too, like they're the breadwinner, right? So
yeah.
If you're the breadwinner, sometimes you think, oh, I need to let them feel, better because no, let's just break all that down and just have a conversation. You're both living in the same house, same apartment, the same, RV. Let's just have a conversation as equals. And a lot of times the women I find know more than they think they do. We got to break down that barrier of I'm scared or I'm nervous or I don't want to look like a fool. We have to break down those barriers. And that's part of where the professionals come in. That's part of our job, is to help you break down that barrier within yourself.
And I love that. And you are a beautiful example of this, being a role model inside of the world of finance, because historically there weren't women to be mentors, to be role models, to say we could do it, to lift other women up, to say, hey, you can do this.
Yeah, I probably am too optimistic sometimes, or maybe a little bit too positive, but I think that's really important to have that energy and that enthusiasm and really help people build up their excitement and their capabilities, because they can. And it doesn't matter what your job is. It doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. You still have the power to learn and grow and change and adapt. And that's where I come in, is to really help try to open those doors for you, at least on the financial side.
Right. Which sounds like it's opening then so many other doors for people to think about.
I actually had a couple of young clients that said, I feel so much better when they leave a meeting with me. That warms my heart. That keeps me going. For you to just say, I came in this ball of anxiety and nerves and fear, and I left feeling better. Maybe not 100%. I'm okay with that, but better, like that's huge.
Yes.
And I tell people that that's huge, that you went from here to here within the span of our meeting. That's huge. And you should give yourself grace and kudos and applause for that, because that was all you.
Right.
That's not me. That's all you doing the work that you didn't even know you were doing.
Beautiful. Yeah. And that encouragement and that empowerment. And to your point earlier, how Studies have shown that women do invest better than men. Again, no dig against our men, but let the facts are the facts, ladies. Right?
We love everybody. We
We love everybody. Yeah, exactly. But we wouldn't be here without our men too. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a number like 0.4% better than the man, which, hey, but over time, that can be very significant. And then also when women are in their abundance and financially abundant, and there is no problem, ladies, with saying that you love money. Can we just admit the fact like everybody loves money? And if you're going to sit here and tell me that money is not important to you, I'm going to call bullshit on that. I'm going to say that maybe you're not finding ways to maximize your potential in money because money is energy, money is important. And when women are making money, women are putting it back into our communities, back into nonprofits, back into empowering other women and other men, boys, girls, you name it. And so, like, why not be abundant? I love this conversation. And listen, my old money mind would be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't know if I want to have a conversation around money and finance, but this is where I'm also trying to feel more empowered in my capability to be abundant, to build abundance for myself, to build wealth, build money, and then do the things that are really on my heart. Like, ladies, we talk about wanting to make impact. Like, this is how we make impact. And so it doesn't have to be the only way, but hey, depending on what sort of impact you're here for, like, let's do it. And you're fully capable.
Think about just shopping local, right? And how much of an impact that makes on the community.
Yes.
Well, if you feel empowered to go to an art fair and spend some money on art that brings you joy, you're spending money though. You're helping them. You're bringing joy to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going in with the mindset of, I know what I'm doing and taking control over that. And that's huge. And I think that the other piece of all of this is not only do we have to break that barrier within ourselves as adults, we have to navigate breaking that barrier with the kids, like our children.
Yes.
Our boys and our girls. I have one son, and by golly, he is going to be respectful of women, or his mother's going to have a moment with him. But he, even with my nieces and nephews, like, I want them to feel empowered even at a young age. So my son over the summer walked a neighbor's dog. We kept a spreadsheet. I made him write down the day how much he made, and then mama took half of it. That's mama. Mama took half of it and put it in a Roth IRA for him.
Boom.
Okay, my kid was 14 and now he's got a Roth IRA and he has access to look at it and see it grow. And little kids, and not little, he's 14, but kids get excited about that, about seeing the fruits of their labor do something. And that's how we break those generational cycles and have those conversations about money. It's okay. These are what bills are. These are how you pay your bills. This is how you manage your checkbook, we have to have those conversations with our children, but we have to have them with ourselves first. And that's where we break down those financial barriers. There's nothing wrong with talking about money. Traditionally, women make less than men. It is the nature of that beast. And we're trying to fight it on a regular basis. But if we don't talk about it, we don't know.
It's still 82 cents on the dollar, ladies. What's happening?
If you don't talk to your counterparts about how much they're making and how much you're making, and people get really wonky about it, but I think it's because they inherently know that the pay scale is probably unfair.
Right.
And they're not making what they fully should make. And then they're afraid to say anything. So those are all those conversations about taking back control of your voice and your money. And it makes a difference that you spend 10 years being underpaid. That's a huge thing. And if you're going to stay at home with the kids, you should still be funding a retirement fund, right? So that's part of that conversation on that budget. And if one parent is staying home, male or female, if somebody's going to stay home with the kids, they still need to be funding a retirement plan. You don't just bank on the one person that's working having the only retirement plan. You both should be having some money set away for retirement. And so those are conversations that shock some people, because I calculate that into can you afford to stay home and do you want to stay home? That goes into that conversation too. I'm not going to let you stay home for 15 years and not be saving toward your retirement.
Sure.
Well, I can't say I'm not going to let you. That sounds really bad.
Be bossy.
It'd be like that strong suggestion. Yeah. You really want to think about this over here.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Yeah. I mean, definitely. I love what you just said about teaching our children and that generational change, because kids love going into the bank and opening up that bank account and then pulling it up online and seeing it grow.
And there's so many apps too, like, right? There's so many apps
yeah.
to deal with your, tend to help manage your money and keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
So it's so accessible now, and I love that.
Mm.
But I think sometimes it can be too accessible and people get a little nervous, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be nervous and afraid. That's perfectly normal. It's just, let's get past that little by little and keep moving you forward.
And just another reason to come see you, Erin, is the overwhelm and options and the accessibility and how much knowledge and information we have at our fingertips. And it's like, oh, what do I do? What's the right thing for me? This website's telling me this. This website's telling me that. This book is telling me this. And then it's like paralysis analysis or analysis paralysis. Yeah. So it's like too much.
Yeah. And then you shut down too. Now we're shutting down on that. And then the other flip side of all this too, we love our men. Sometimes they're brought into the conversation, or they feel obligated to kind of head that financial journey. But a lot of times there's insecurity there. They don't really know what they're doing. They're talking to their buddies, and their buddies may be giving them wrong information on the golf course or in the bar. And I'm like, no, that's actually not correct, or that's not really how you should be thinking about it. So, sometimes even men have insecurities that they're afraid to come forth with. And it comes out in a different way than women. Women tend to be a little bit more honest about their insecurities and what kind of the fears and things that are holding them back. And men, it takes a little bit of digging to figure out what their insecurities are. But a lot of it goes back to our childhood conversations around money and how we were raised and what occurred in the household.
Right. So if someone were interested in this financial 101, if I wanted to start building my financial money acumen, where would you send me? What books would you?
I want you to come talk to me.
Oh, yeah, of course. As far as resources, other resources, so we can start.
There's a lot of, I have to tell people, the Susie Ormans, the Dave Ramseys of the world, they're great if you want to get like maybe an initial little taste, but you have to remember that it's all great. It's all kind of media. They're going for the most amount of people that they can impact. The most generic amount of information, right? So just kind of take it with a grain of salt that it may not be applicable to you. But I think the first step is always going to be just take a look, take stock of what you have, right? It's like going into your pantry. What can I make for dinner tonight based on what I got in there? Same thing with your finances. What do I have? What don't I have? Where's it going? And have that conversation. And there's a couple of great websites, and now I'm completely blanking on them.
That's okay. We'll drop them in the show notes. No worries.
And so there are some avenues that people can go to just try to get that conversation started a little bit. One of the websites, it's really weird. I tell people it's called Investopedia. And all its job is kind of giving you definitions of financial terms. Okay. And so sometimes that's all people need.
Interesting. Yeah.
Is to look up what this word means from a reputable source or what this phrase means so that they can feel a little bit more empowered to ask a deeper question. The CFP board has it's called Find a Planner. So if they want to find somebody in their area, the CFP board has a way for you to look up financial planners, and it gives a lot of parameters around what they focus on, what they do, and what they don't do. Those are kind of some different areas to look into. I would not recommend the IRS website. That's really overwhelming.
Okay. Scary. Text. Lots of words.
Because it is tax season. I know a lot of people are like, what do I do? This tax season.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just a matter of just taking the baby steps. What do you want to learn? A lot of it. What do you want to learn? What do you want to do? And go from there.
A few questions I have that I'm sure listeners are asking themselves that I would love to hear your thoughts on. Questions we're asking ourselves in finance, such as, am I building good budgeting? How do I know I'm doing that? And I know if they came to see you, you would take them through all of these things. But is there any kind of like quick tips that you might offer our listeners around, I feel like maybe I'm budgeting pretty well. I don't know if it's on the back of a spreadsheet or...
Napkin budgeting is great too. So there is kind of when I first start with the budgeting conversation, again, I don't want to make it super specific that you think that, you're judging yourself or somebody's judging you on what you spend. There is a budget called the 50-30-20. So it's 50% of your money towards needs, 30% towards wants, and then 20% towards savings. What I tend to do when people are starting their budget is I tend to have them put their money into categories, right? Wants, needs, savings. And let's
Love
see
that.
what that looks like, just really generic. And then so we know what our 50 or 30 or 20% should be. Where are we now? And then how do we shift into the column? So sometimes it's just as easy as that.
Okay. That's good. I like that.
Figuring,
Like these,
yeah,
I'm looking for
super
just simple ways. Yes.
super
How do
simple.
we simplify, ladies? We have so many other things going on.
I don't have time to be making a 4-page spreadsheet that has like 17 formulas on it.
Yes.
No, I do have a spreadsheet for my budget. It is color coded in the wants, the needs, and the savings
Mhm.
because back when I was in my early 30s, somebody taught me about
Mm.
this. The other thing that's really interesting, my sister taught me this early on when I was in my early 20s. I used to pay a bill as soon as it was due.
Mhm.
It was due on the first of the month. I paid it on the first month out of that paycheck that came
Mhm.
first. That did not work for me at the time because I was at college and I was a server and what?
Mm.
And then I'd have one paycheck that's gone and then the next paycheck. So sometimes it's splitting up your bills over the course of your month. So splitting it between 2 paychecks,
Mhm.
right? Take half of it out this paycheck and then you take half of it out the next paycheck. So it's figuring out what works for
Mm.
your cash flow and trying to keep it as even. But I think with the budgeting, your wants, your needs, your savings, let's just super simple it.
I love that. I love that so much.
And you do it on a napkin at the bar or at the coffee shop.
Or the coffee shop.
Make We're done.
Great. Okay. So I know we mentioned this a little bit earlier in the conversation, which was around financial protection. So, our ladies and men who are going through possibly divorce, something like that. And I've run into this with some of my clients as well, going through a separation. And then they tell themselves, oh my gosh, they find themselves in this not ideal financial situation. And to your point, might be giving away more than they really need to. And so, them telling themselves, oh my gosh, this will never happen to me again. Oh, and it just, my heart. So, what can women do to make sure that they are financially protected?
So the first thing is to know what you have, right? Like feel like I'm running in a circle here, but
Yeah.
definitely know what you
Yeah.
have. Nobody goes into a relationship thinking it's going to end
Right.
in any which way
Hmm.
possible, but we do have to keep an eye on the ball as we go throughout. When it comes to divorce, I really, really cannot. This is where I really think you should get a professional. I think you should get one of us certified financial planners. There's my next designation is going to be a certified divorce financial analyst. Your attorneys are there to help battle the nitty-gritty, right? Your CPAs are there, your tax preparers are there to look at what happened in the past, right? Your financial planners are there to see where you're at now, what happened in the past, and what's going to happen in the future and help plan for it. And divorce is really one of those pieces where I really think you should call your attorney, but talk to a financial professional at the same
Yes.
time to help you navigate what your new world is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
That is probably the one I think that you need to have. Don't go to Google.
Yeah.
Don't go to
Right.
Google. Don't go to Instagram. Find a person that you can meet face to face and have that conversation with because it is so emotional. Safety and security as well can look at things like insurance, life insurance for yourself, along with health insurance. What does our retirement look like? How are we going to pay for our kids' college? So, safety and security means different things for different people. We have a lot of parents in our community that have special needs children. And so that's a whole different type of planning that we want to do because that might mean for them protecting their children from, if something were to happen to the parents, how do we protect our children? So
Sure.
it looks different for
Yeah.
everybody. Like getting somebody in your corner to help navigate and ask those questions with you,
Mm.
right? I'm with you on this journey. I'm not against you. And I'm not sometimes I'll lead you, but for the most part, I'm with you. I'm hand in hand. So I think a lot of that it's defining what's safe and secure for you.
Mm. And I love this idea about just hiring the expert and then just knowing that that is going to save you so much more time, so much more energy, so much more money, ladies.
As much as you
Yes.
want, as much as you don't want to, a lot of people, the barrier to talking to a financial planner is A, they don't think they have enough money. You do. I tell you, if you have a dollar, you've got enough money. And or they don't want to pay the fees
Hmm.
associated with financial planners. That is something that I am trying to personally in my firm we break down those barriers. I will have a
Mm.
conversation with you and my conversations are not I'm not charging you until we have that conversation about that piece, right? So don't let paying somebody or the fear of paying somebody keep you from walking through that door. They should not be charging you for your first appointment at all. And sometimes I don't even charge for the second or the third. It depends on the conversation.
Right.
Because I don't want that to be the barrier for you to not make that step forward.
Right. Beautiful. We love that.
And I'm super inexpensive. I need to charge more to be great. As women, we tend to not see. I'm a woman too. I know.
There we go.
We tend to not, charge for our full value.
That's right.
It happens.
That's right.
It's the nature of the beast. It's because I am so service focused that I don't want money to be a barrier to people's lives.
Hey, we're all on this journey together, and we're, as Rumi said, the poet, we're all just walking each other home. We've got each other here. All right, Erin, a few closing questions for you. Where do you find the most joy?
So I have learned in my old age that I find the most joy of being of service to others.
Yeah.
No matter what capacity it's in, whether it is in my full-time work, if it's in my volunteer work, if it is helping a friend navigate whatever life crisis they're going through. I am a person that I've learned that I have to be of service. I'm constantly like, how can I help you? Sometimes I'm a little overly helpful, but it's giving back. It's being of service to people. And I cannot say no to most volunteer requests. So
that shines through in the most beautiful way. That shines through. Yeah.
You're so kind. Thank you.
All right. So how would you say one can begin to explore what inspires them? Living in this world of consciously inspired minds, and obviously you're doing work that inspires you and that you're passionate about and lights you up, what would your advice be to someone who desires to explore what inspires them?
It's very interesting that you say that because I feel like we default to what interests us when we're not paying attention. If we're Googling or we're on TikTok or we're on Instagram, what are we gravitating towards, right? Are we gravitating towards the people that are doing home decor? Are we gravitating towards the people that are traveling? And what is it about those that are inspiring us or navigating us down that path, right? I've always wanted to learn Italian. I pick it up, I put it down, I pick it up, I put it down. But I always tend to, when I find myself looking at movies or TV shows or whatever about the travel, heading for the travel and adventures and experiences. So I know that that's something that is something that I want to pursue more. So I think kind of on your downtime and when you're not thinking about it, what are you gravitating towards? Where does your brain go? And then you think, oh, that seems really cool, or that seems excited. Oh, I could never do that, right? We always think, oh, I can never do that. You can. You just got to figure out how. But kind of where are you at on your quiet time? When it's just you in your car and you're zoning out before you go in the house at night, what are you zoning out on besides stress?
That's great. And I love this kind of easy way of approaching it because I feel like so many of us are like, what's my purpose? What do I need to do? Where do I need to go? Where do I need to be? I mean, some of us can be in moments of crisis where we really do need to make a big change. But if you're not in that crisis, just taking stock, as you say, taking inventory of, gosh, where am I feeling lit up? And just like gently writing those down somewhere in a book or in a pretty notebook like Erin showed me when we got on the call today, or just something that just feels easy and flow and wow, like just interesting. And then come back and then just start to introduce some of those things into your world in a way that doesn't feel so stressful.
Yeah, because people are like, I want to read 50 books this
year.
Okay,
right.
So maybe we can do some audiobooks and feel free to pick up a book and it's not the right time to read it and put it back
100%.
down again, right? Like we have to give ourselves that grace to do things little by little, piece by piece to build the puzzle. Because if we do try to do it all at once, that's where we get overwhelmed when we shut down.
And even though you get these, and you may even get these downloads of like, oh, I really love this, I need to dive all in. It's like, well, not necessarily. I mean, that was a nice ping. It was a nice download, maybe start to introduce, but doesn't mean that it all has to be done right now. That was just a message of, hey, it can be done later. Like I know, for instance, there's interests that I have that I don't have time or capacity for right now. And I know that, and I honor that. I know what the main act is versus like the backup singers. And so that's going to come later. And I embrace that and I'm excited for it. That gets me excited to know that that's coming.
Something to look forward to, right? And this season of your life may not be the time for you to travel, but it doesn't mean you can't get pleasure from, seeing travel shows or reading travel books or things like that. It just may not be your season, but still cultivate that within you and still take an interest in it. Like you said, it just doesn't have to be all or nothing right now.
Amazing. Erin, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation, and I've personally learned so much. Where can people find you?
I am here in Cincinnati locally. I am at Kehoe Financial, Kehoe Financial. We're a small firm over in the Tri-County area. Feel free to check out our website and go from there. I'm on LinkedIn. I post a lot to LinkedIn to help educate people to keep that going. And then I have a personal Instagram if you want to follow that. It's just random pictures, but I'm around if you need me.
Amazing. And we'll put all the links to contact Erin in the show notes. One last thing I wanted to just drop to our listeners is a book that I would highly recommend to all my ladies. I just finished reading it, and it's called We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rogers. So good. I mean, this has changed my money mind for the better in just a matter of a few months. I mean, game changer. We will definitely drop that in the show notes. I just bought a copy for my girlfriend. And yeah, I'm like, you're going to love this book. So we'll drop that. Erin, thank you again. It was such a pleasure having you on. And everybody give Erin a call, reach out, and let's build up that money mind. Awesome. Let's make some impact.
It has been an honor. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Erin. All right, everybody. Bye-bye. That's all for today. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. If you'd like to learn more about Consciously Inspired Minds, you can visit us at consciouslyinspiredminds.com. If these episodes have you wondering how you can design a life uniquely inspired by you, head on over to modelifestylecoaching.com. That's MODE lifestylecoaching.com and schedule a free call. I'd love to learn more about your deepest desires and how we can get you closer to your authentic life vision and impact. Until we connect again, explore what inspires you.